Steve Vai was just a young guitarist, barely out of school, when he got the call that would change his life. Frank Zappa, one of the most creative and fearless musicians of all time, had noticed him. For a kid who grew up worshiping complex music and dreaming about breaking boundaries, it was like being invited to step into another universe. Zappa didn't want just another guitar player. He wanted someone who could keep up with his wild ideas, his odd rhythms, and his impossible musical challenges. Vai was terrified, but also thrilled. When Steve first walked into Zappa's world, it felt like stepping onto a battlefield of sound. Everyone was sharp, smart, and intense. Zappa had an energy that demanded your best at every second. For Vai, it was both inspiring and terrifying. He quickly learned that working for Frank was not just about playing guitar. It was about surviving tests of creativity, discipline, and courage. And what Zappa thought of Vai in those early days, that answer would surprise even Steve himself. Zappa's honest opinion: Frank Zappa wasn't a man who handed out compliments easily. If you worked for him, you had to earn respect. Steve Vai later revealed that when he first joined, he was unsure if Zappa saw him as just another musician or someone truly special. One day, Steve gathered the courage to ask what Zappa really thought of him. The answer stayed with him forever. Zappa told Vai, "You're like my stunt guitarist." At first, Steve didn't know whether to take it as a compliment or a challenge. But Zappa explained. He saw Vai as someone who could take on the most difficult parts, the insane musical passages no one else could handle. It meant he trusted Vai with the toughest moments, the places where music was stretched beyond normal limits. For a young guitarist, this was both exciting and terrifying. Zappa's trust was a heavy responsibility, but it also met and something deeper. He saw real potential in Vai. That honesty was Zappa's way of showing respect. He didn't need to flatter. He told the truth. And to Steve Vai, that truth became fuel to push himself further than ever before. The best advice he ever received. Working with Frank Zappa was like living inside a constant lesson. Every rehearsal, every show, every late-night talk was filled with ideas. But among all the things Zappa said, there was one piece of advice Steve Vai never forgot. Frank told him, "Always be authentic. Don't play for approval. Play for the music." Those words hit Vai deeply. At that time, like many young musicians, he often worried about impressing others, fans, critics, or even his own bandmates. But Zappa taught him that the only real power comes from being true to yourself. When you try to copy others, you become a shadow. When you stay authentic, you become a force. Steve carried that advice into his entire career. Whether performing impossible solos, writing his own records, or even teaching younger players, authenticity became his guiding light. He realized that Zappa didn't just want great musicians, he wanted fearless individuals. That advice shaped Steve's path forever and became one of the greatest gifts Zappa left him. Lessons beyond music. Frank Zappa was more than a musician to Steve Vai. He was a mentor who showed him how to think differently about life. Zappa questioned everything. He didn't just accept rules, he challenged them. For a young Vai, this was eye-opening. Steve learned that music wasn't just about notes on a page. It was about expression, freedom, and courage. Zappa taught him that mistakes weren't failures, they were opportunities to create something new. That way of thinking changed the way Vai approached not only music, but everything in life. Another big lesson was discipline. People often thought Zappa was wild and chaotic, but in truth, he demanded absolute precision. Every part of his band had to be perfect, no excuses. From that, Vai learned that genius doesn't just come from inspiration, it comes from hard work, endless practice, and total dedication. These lessons stayed with him long after Zappa was gone. They became the invisible tools that helped Vai build his own career, his own sound, and his own voice in the world of music. Carrying the legacy. Years later, Steve Vai often reflects on his time with Frank Zappa. He knows that without Zappa's guidance, his journey might have been completely different. The advice, the challenges, the lessons, they became the foundation of who he is today. Vai admits that what Zappa really gave him was confidence, by trusting him with the hardest parts, by giving him honest opinions, by teaching him to be authentic. Zappa handed Vai the keys to his future. And even though Zappa is gone, his presence is always with Steve when he picks up a guitar. Today, when Vai shares these stories, fans see not just a legendary guitarist, but a man who was shaped by another legend. The bond between them is a reminder that great mentors don't just teach you how to play, they teach you how to live, how to think, and how to create without fear. In Steve Vai's words, the best tribute he can give Zappa is to keep playing with authenticity, just as Frank told him all those years ago. And in every note, Zappa's spirit lives on.